The dawn, a muted watercolor, bleeds across the eastern sky. But within the confines of your small apartment, only shadows hold court. They cling to the corners, to the forgotten stacks of case files you can no longer touch, to the empty space where a partner's laughter once echoed. You rise with the practiced quietude of a ghost, the floorboards sighing beneath your bare feet, a symphony of solitude. The aroma of stale coffee, a constant companion hangs heavy in the air, a bitter comfort. Your reflection in a steamed bathroom mirror offers a stranger. Eyes, once sharp and unyielding, now carry the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights, etched with the memory of a failure that carved away your career, your reputation, everything you were. Seth Corbin, they used to call you, a name synonymous with relentless pursuit. Now, it's just Seth, a man adrift in the quiet aftermath of a storm he couldn't quell. You shave with slow, deliberate strokes. The razors whisper the loudest sound in the apartment, a faint counterpoint to the distant hum of the city awakening. Each morning is a meticulous performance, a ritual designed to keep the past at bay, to prevent the specters of the Orchid killer case from clawing their way back into the present. Your old service phone, a relic you keep charged for reasons even you can no longer articulate, blares its forgotten ringtone. You eye it with a detached curiosity, a relic from a life you'd painstakingly dismantled, a number you recognize, a face you'd hoped to never see again. The detective, your former colleague, his name a sharp sting on your tongue. He doesn't need to explain further. Your mind, a rusty engine, sparks to life, the gears grinding. You hear the faint static of a police radio in the background, the distant wail of sirens. It's a language you understand intimately, a dialect of despair. Where you manage, your own voice rough with disuse, the old offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes. Yet here, the address alone sends a jolt through you, a memory surfacing unbidden. The meticulous nature of the original crimes, the chosen locations often sterile, precise, almost clinical. You dress quickly, the familiar motions of pulling on a sturdy jacket, lacing up boots, a phantom echo of countless call-outs. The quiet determination, long dormant, begins to stir in your gut, a low, persistent thrum. The drive is a blur of city lights and the persistent thrum of your own pulse. As you approach the designated location, the flashing blue and red lights are a garish welcome, painting the gray dawn in urgent strokes. Uniformed officers mill about, their faces grim, their movements hushed. The air here is different, heavy with unspoken horrors tinged with the metallic scent you've come to associate with death. Your former colleague spots you, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and reluctant relief. The Orchid. The word hits you like a physical blow. The Orchid, not just any flower, but a specific variety, a rare bloom always left at the scene, a macabre calling card, the very detail that had haunted your waking hours and plagued your dreams for years. You push past the tape, a ghost walking among the living, drawn by an invisible current into the heart of the nightmare. The victim, a man in a sharp suit, lies slumped over a polished mahogany desk, his posture oddly composed, almost serene. No struggle, no overturned chairs, no scattered papers, just a meticulous, silent end. Your gaze sweeps across the room, taking in every detail, your mind already cataloging, comparing. The scent of disinfectant struggles to mask something deeper, something visceral. And then you see it, nestled delicately between the victim's folded hands, a single, pristine orchid, a phalaenopsis, its petals a vibrant, almost artificial white, utterly unmarred. It's identical to the one found at the first scene, the one that launched a career and then shattered it. No alarms tripped, the security feed conveniently blank for an hour. You don't need him to elaborate. The years of isolation, the deliberate detachment, crumble around you. This isn't just a new crime, it's a direct challenge, a taunt from a past that refuses to stay buried. You feel the familiar, icy grip of the hunt closing around you, pulling you back into the labyrinth you thought you'd escaped. The determination, long dormant, ignites a fierce, unwavering flame in the face of this profound, sickening echo. You are Seth Corbin, and the game, it seems, has begun anew. The phantom, you remember the whisper of its name. A chill that seeped into the marrow of your bones had not merely stirred from slumber. It had stretched, a predator awakening, its shadow falling across the city once more. This isn't your fight anymore. You walked away, or rather, were pushed, propelled by the relentless current of suspicion and the crushing weight of a case unsolved. Your name, Seth Corbin, once synonymous with sharp insight, became a byword for failure. A sharp rap at your door jolts you from the reverie. You don't need to ask. Only one person would track you down this early, this relentlessly. The lead investigator, a man whose face has etched deeper lines of fatigue since you last saw him, stands framed in the doorway, his silhouette stark against the nascent light. His eyes, usually sharp and assessing, hold a plea you recognize, a desperation that cuts through your resolve like a honed blade. Seth, he begins, his voice low, a gravelly murmur. They found another one. Your breath catches, a shard of ice in your throat. You already know. The air itself feels thick with the killer's return, a scentless, invisible miasma. You simply nod, a curt gesture of acknowledgement, unwilling to give voice to the fear that coils in your gut. It's identical. He continues, stepping inside without an invitation, his gaze sweeping over the Spartan living space, devoid of personal touches. The placement, the meticulous staging, and the flower, Seth, a single pressed snowdrop, laid with surgical precision. The snowdrop, the killer's perverse signature. You feel the familiar tightening in your chest, the ghost of past failure pressing against your ribs. Where? You ask, the word a rasp. The victim was a senior partner. He was found at his desk, perfectly preserved, a tableau of death. Not a single trace of forced entry. No struggle, just stillness. And the flower. The image blooms in your mind. The pristine office. The victim. The snowdrop. A ghost from your past case, manifested anew. You remember the meticulousness, the killer's almost artistic precision, transforming a brutal act into a macabre display. They're good, but they don't know him like you did. The patterns, the nuances, they're missing something. I'm out, you say, the words tasting like ash. Disgraced, tainted. Remember? He steps closer, his gaze unwavering. I remember a detective who saw connections no one else did, who understood the artistry behind the horror. They're floundering, Seth, and the brass, they're desperate. They know your history, yes, but they also know you were closer than anyone. This is him. You turn away, walking to the window, staring out at the gray city. Your reputation is in tatters, your life a quiet solitude. What more could you lose? What then? What if he claims another? You're testing the waters, dipping a hesitant toe into the frigid current. Nothing substantial yet, he admits, a flicker of frustration crossing his features. No witnesses, no usable prints. The security footage from the office building was wiped clean, almost surgically. Not just corrupted, removed. And the shred bins emptied, the locked safes untouched. It's almost as if the killer knew exactly what he was doing, where to go, what to leave, and what to take. Your mind, despite your reluctance, begins to whir, piecing together fragments. Wiped footage, emptied shred bins, untouched safes. This isn't a random act of violence, it's a statement, a calculated move. A pattern in their lives, beyond the obvious. The lead investigator hesitates. That's what we need you for, Seth. You were the only one who ever hinted at a deeper connection. Something beyond the surface. We've run the usual background checks, but nothing stands out to us. He reaches into his coat pocket, pulling out a small, sealed evidence bag. He places it on your coffee table. A silent offering, a challenge. You stare at the flower, its fragile beauty mocking the brutality it signifies. The phantom killer. He had returned, or perhaps had never truly left, merely shifted his hunting grounds. The lead investigator's eyes, heavy with the weight of the new death, meet yours. You see the silent question, the desperate plea. The city needs you. Seth Corbin, the disgraced detective. Your unique insight, your tiny genius is the only key they have. And deep down, despite the bitterness, the fear, the crushing memories, you feel the familiar, irresistible pull of the chase. The phantom had returned, and it was calling your name. You pick up the evidence bag, the plastic cool against your skin. The game, it seems, has begun again. The snowdrop rests on your coffee table, a stark white sentinel against the dark wood. You trace the delicate curve of its petals with a hesitant finger. The cool glass of the evidence bag, a thin barrier between your touch and its chilling message. The detective, his face a mask of practiced stoicism, had left without another word. The implication hanging in the air like winter breath. He's back. You rise, the familiar ache in your knee a constant companion, and move to the window. Rain streaks the glass, blurring the city lights into impressionistic smudges. Years you spent trying to forget, to bury the ghost of that case, the one that splintered your career and fractured your spirit. Now, a single flower, a harbinger, blooms in the debris of your abandoned life. This time, you won't just observe. This time, you will hunt. You need information, unfiltered by official channels. The old case files, archived and sealed, are beyond your reach officially. You think of a colleague, a man named Marcus, whose desk still holds a framed photo of your old team, an echo of a time before your fall. He's a cautious man, but loyal, and perhaps, just perhaps, he understands the gnawing hunger of an unfinished hunt. Marcus arrives, his eyes wary, a faint tremor in his hands as he slides into the booth opposite you. He doesn't need to ask why you summoned him, and anything new you can get your hands on, unofficially. He hesitates, glancing around the half-empty diner. You know what this means. If anyone finds out, I know you cut him off, your gaze unwavering. And I know what it means if I don't. You push a folded envelope across the table. Not money, a piece of information from an old, sensitive case you'd helped him close years ago, a detail only you knew. A silent leverage. His jaw tightens. He picks up the envelope, weighing it in his hand. Give me 24 hours. The next evening, a nondescript package arrives at your door, left by a delivery service you've never used. Inside, a battered cardboard box holds the weight of your past. Photocopies of your old case files, thick binders bursting with crime scene photos, witness statements, forensic reports, and your own meticulous notes scrawl in the margins of yellowing pages. You spread the documents across your dining table, transforming it into an impromptu war room. The air grows thick with the scent of old paper and stale coffee. The cause of death, initially reported as blunt force trauma, feels like a deliberate misdirection. You recall the old case, the initial reports, the subtle nuances that only truly revealed themselves upon deeper scrutiny. Then, you dive into the old files. Photographs of the victim, a young woman, her face serene even in death, her hands bound. You remember the frustration, the dead ends, the way the investigation had unraveled. You pore over the crime scene photos again, not just looking at the victim, but at the periphery, the background, the detailed forensic reports, the ones you'd practically memorized. You focus on the binding. In the original report, it was dismissed as a simple restraint. The rope type noted, but nothing more. There, on a faded photograph of the old victim's wrists, is a specific, intricate knot. Not a standard sailor's knot, nor a common household tie. It's a precise, almost decorative knot, designed for strength but also for a certain aesthetic. You remember seeing it in a niche publication, a book on historical binding techniques, a detail you dismissed as irrelevant at the time. You flip to the new case notes, scanning for any mention of restraints. The preliminary report only states evidence of binding and ligature marks, not enough detail. But the absence of detailed information is a detail in itself. If the same unique knot was used, it would be easily overlooked by someone not specifically looking for it or not recognizing its distinctiveness. This is a pattern, not just the snowdrop, but a deeper, more personal signature. The memory surfaces, hazy at first, then sharpens. A detail from the old investigation about the victim's employer. At the time, it had seemed irrelevant, a dead end. But now, with the killer's meticulousness evident in the knot, the choice of a specific, discreet workplace for the first asterisk victim feels deliberate. Was there something in that office, something she knew or possessed, that marked her? You lean back, the chair groaning under your weight. The two seemingly disparate threads, now intertwining, pulling you deeper into the labyrinth. And you, Seth Corbin, are finally starting to read again. The tension hums around you, a live wire. The game has begun. The contact's fingers, thick and calloused, close around the folded envelope you pushed across the table. His jaw works, a muscle twitching beneath his ear. The silence stretches, taut as a wire, before he finally nods a curt, almost imperceptible gesture. No words are exchanged, none are needed. The old debt, the quiet leverage, has been acknowledged. You rise, leaving him with the weight of that unspoken agreement, the phantom echo of a past he thought buried. The chill of the night air bites at your exposed skin as you step back onto the street, but it's a welcome sensation, a sharp clarity against the haze of memory. The information you're about to receive, the name of the last person to speak with the victim, a detail withheld from public consumption, is a thread, a fragile thing. Yet it's all you have to pull. Hours later, hunched over your scarred kitchen table, the low hum of the refrigerator the only company, a single name stares back at you from the crumpled napkin the contact had slipped into your hand. Just a ripple in the vast, still pool of the city. You trace the letters with a fingertip, a faint tremor running through you. The first step back onto a path you swore you'd abandon. A sudden, sharp rap on your door jolts you upright. It's an unusual hour for visitors. You move with the practiced quiet, peering through the peephole. No company logo, no return address. A prickle of unease dances on your skin. You open the door a crack, your hand hovering near the lock. Seth Corbin? The courier asks, his voice muffled by his scarf. That's me, you confirm, your voice flat. He holds out a digital pad. Sign here. You scroll your name, your eyes fixed on the package. It's light, innocuous. You take it, the cardboard cool against your palm. Percent des. The courier shrugs, already turning to descend the steps. No sender listed, just a personal delivery. He's gone before you can press him further, melting into the streetlight glow. Back inside, you place the package on the table, a sudden reluctance to open it seizing you. You pick up a utility knife, slice through the tape with a swift, decisive motion. Inside, nestled amongst crinkled packing paper, is a single, antique locket. Silver tarnished with age, exquisitely etched with forgotten filigree. Your breath catches. You know this locket. You've seen it before, not in a picture, not in a case file, but in a memory so vivid it could be yesterday. It belonged to your mother, a gift from her own mother. a cherished heirloom she wore every day, until the day she disappeared. It was never found, not by the authorities, not by you, not in the decades since. Yet here it is, lying in your kitchen, a silent, cruel testament to a past you walled off with concrete and steel. Your fingers tremble as you pry it open. Inside, where a tiny, faded photograph of your mother should be, is a neatly folded square of parchment. The paper is old, brittle, smelling faintly of something metallic. You unfold it, revealing a single typewritten sentence. Some things, Seth, are never truly lost, only misplaced. The words are a poisoned dart, striking deep. The killer knows you, knows your history, knows your deepest wound. The game has changed. The pressure, already a heavy cloak, now presses down with the weight of Grant. This is no longer just about catching a killer. It's about surviving a personal assault. The name Elias Vance burns in your mind. He's the first link to the current victim. And now, suddenly, perhaps to you, Elias Vance's name had led you here, to the firm he'd worked for, a place notorious for its discreet dealings and impenetrable records. Vance is no longer with the firm, she replies, her fingers hovering over a keyboard. He left suddenly. I'm aware, you counter. I need access to his files, his last known clients. It's urgent. Her lips thin. We cannot disclose client information. Confidentiality is paramount. She gestures vaguely toward a sign on the wall, detailing the firm's ironclad privacy policy. You lean forward, lowering your voice. This isn't about confidentiality, it's about a murder investigation. Elias Vance is dead, and I have reason to believe his death is connected to a much larger, older pattern. You watch her face for a flicker, a crack in the professional veneer. A slight tightening around her eyes is all you get. Even so, we require a court order for such access, she insists, though her gaze now darts nervously to the heavy, steel door behind her, likely leading to the archives. A court order takes time I don't have. You press. Someone is sending me messages. Messages that suggest they know a great deal about me, and about Elias Vance's work here. Things that shouldn't be known by anyone outside this office. Things that point to this office. Your gaze sweeps pointedly to the large, industrial shred bins tucked discreetly near the back wall, then to the imposing, reinforced door of the locked safes. Are you absolutely certain there's nothing in those shred bins from Mr. Vance's last days? Nothing in those safes that might have been expedited? The receptionist swallows, her composure finally beginning to fray. That's the locket, heavy in your pocket, feels like a brand. The killer's taunt echoes. Her eyes, wide and glistening, dart to the heavy, bolted door, then back to your unwavering gaze. The silence stretches, taut as a wire, punctuated only by the distant hum of servers and the gentle clatter of the building settling. Uncomfortable, she whispers, the word barely audible. What makes you think because you know something, you cut in, your voice a low, steady current. The way your hands tremor, the way your eyes refuse to meet mine for more than a second. This isn't just about a client's confidentiality. This is about blood on the ledger. A shudder runs through her. She finally breaks. There was a dispute with Mr. Davies. A loud one, last week. He was volatile. Always was, especially after his investments soured. Mr. Davies, you repeat, filing the name away. A junior partner, you recall from the firm's public profiles. Known for his aggressive litigation style, less so for his financial acumen. What kind of dispute? Financial. He'd made a series of questionable decisions with client funds. Nothing illegal, mind you, but certainly unethical. Our victim, they were pushing for an internal review, threatening to expose him. Her voice drops further, a conspiratorial murmur. He was facing ruin, complete disbarment, losing everything. You nod slowly, the pieces clicking into a grimly plausible mosaic. Motive, financial ruin, professional disgrace. Opportunity, he worked here, means anger, desperation, a classic, tragic tale. You press for details. When did this argument happen? Who else heard it? She recounts the scene with vivid, frightened precision. The raised voices, the slamming doors, the raw fury emanating from Davies' office. The narrative paints Davies as a man pushed to the brink, cornered and dangerous. You step away from the desk, your mind already sifting through the implications. The receptionist's account, while not a confession, provides a compelling, immediate suspect. It's a clean narrative, almost too neat, but undeniably logical. The detective, you know, will seize on this. It offers an easy target, a clear path through the fog. Later that day, the official machinery begins to grind eventually. A direct call from a former colleague, a detective still willing to bend the rules for you. We've got a lead, Seth. The detective's voice is tight, professional. A junior partner, Davies, had a major beef with the victim. Financial impropriety, Threatened exposure. The simplicity of it feels wrong. A tap. A colleague heard him threatening the victim directly, just days prior. And his alibi for the night? That claims he was home, alone. No witnesses. We're bringing him in for questioning. The official investigation pivots. A sudden, decisive turn towards Davies. It makes sense. It's tangible. It's the kind of suspect the system craves. A clear motive, a troubled past, a convenient timeline. The news will likely be plastered with his name by morning. The case, to the public eye, will be all but closed. But as the detective outlines the mounting evidence, a discordant note sounds in your mind. You recall the victim's precise, almost surgical wounds, the calculated, silent infiltration, his rage with fire, not a scalpel, the peculiar absence of struggle in the victim's office, despite the violent nature of the attack, the almost artistic precision of the blood spatter patterns, indicating a deliberate, controlled action rather than a frenzied outburst. You remember the scent, faint, metallic, almost clinical, that clung to the air near the victim's desk, not just the coppery tang of blood. And then, a memory solidifies, a tiny, almost imperceptible detail you dismissed at the time. A fragment of a specific type of thin, reinforced tape, not standard packing tape, but something used for securing delicate electronics or high-value documents. It had been adhering to the underside of the victim's desk, half-hidden, as if torn away in haste. Davies was a lawyer, a brawler, a man of words and temper. He wasn't known for meticulous planning, for the quiet, methodical application of specialized tools. He wouldn't have used that kind of tape. He would have used brute force, left a mess. The official narrative, the one quickly being constructed around Davies, felt like a hastily constructed facade. It explained the who, perhaps even the why, but it fundamentally failed to explain the how. You pull out the few photographs you managed to capture, zooming in on the desk, the floor, the subtle marks. It wasn't the heavy, agitated stride of Davies. It was something else, lighter, more deliberate, almost ghost-like. It's drawing the eye, lulling the official investigation into a false sense of closure. And they are watching, undoubtedly pleased with the chaos they've sown, the easy scapegoat they've provided. You are certain of it. The real game, the deeper, more dangerous game has just begun. The official narrative congeals, thick and cloying, around Davies. You feel its weight, a suffocating blanket woven from convenient truths, designed to smother the uncomfortable chill of the unknown. The news will trumpet his name by morning, a convenient villain for a public hungry for closure. But your gut, that gnawing beast, snarls defiance. It remembers the whisper of an older truth, a cold that precedes the storm, a pattern too deliberate to be dismissed as the rage of a desperate man. The scattered files, resurrected from the dusty corners of your past, mock the neatness of the official reports. Yellowed photographs curl at the edges like burnt leaves, their monochrome horrors etched into your memory. The pristine, sterile digital files from the new case offer no solace, only a stark, echoing repetition. They speak of motives you reject, of coincidences that mock your intuition. Your fingers trace the grim lines of a victim's face, then flick to another, years removed, yet hauntingly similar. The patterns remain elusive, a phantom limb aching with memory, a half-formed thought perpetually just beyond your grasp. Frustration, a bitter ash, coats your tongue. You stand, pacing the worn floorboards, the floorboard that have absorbed countless hours of your relentless pursuit. The detective on the case, a younger man whose ambition shines too brightly, will close this chapter with a flourish, convinced he has caged the monster. But you know better. You feel the phantom presence of something far more intricate, far more patient. A detail, always a detail. Something peripheral, dismissed, a speck in the vast tapestry of horror. A meticulousness that spoke not of frenzy, but of calculated intent. And then, a phantom scent, the metallic tang of ozone, like after a storm, or perhaps, after industrial machinery has devoured something vital. But the thought lingers, a persistent burr under your skin. You remember the hum of the high-capacity shredders, a constant, low thrum beneath the polished floors. You remember the faint, almost invisible mist of cellulose and polymer that hung in the air, a ghost of destroyed secrets. The air in those places, so clean, yet permeated by the ghost of what was obliterated. You ignore the bold headlines, the conclusions, the summaries. Your eyes scan the minutiae, the appendices, the footnotes. You're searching for the insignificant, the overlooked, a specific contaminant, an anomaly in the environmental readings. Anything, and there it is, buried deep within the environmental analysis of the first crime scene, a tiny entry, microscopic particulate matter, suspected fibrous cellulose and polymer fragments, dismissed as environmental debris due to proximity to construction site. And in the new report, an eerily similar notation, trace elements of synthetic polymer and processed wood fiber fiber. Source undetermined, likely incidental. Incidental. Déjà construction site. There was no construction site near the first victim's home, not for miles, and the new victim's apartment was a pristine, sealed environment. How could these precise, almost identical fragments appear in two such disparate locations, years apart, and be so easily dismissed? Suddenly, it crystallizes. Not a smell, not a sound, but a visual ghost, a recurring whisper in the forensic silence. That faint, almost iridescent shimmer you vaguely recalled on the collar of the first victim's coat in the photographs, a similar subtle dust on the polished floorboards of the news scene. It was always there, catalogued as environmental debris, a footnote in the forensic report, a piece of noise filtered out by the official narrative. But it wasn't dust, it was residue. Microscopic slivers of high-grade security paper, the kind designed to resist reconstruction, dispersed by the violent maw of an industrial shredder. Not just any shredder, but one capable of reducing documents to near molecular dust. The kind found in places where secrets are not merely kept, but annihilated. The killer isn't just taking lives, they are erasing legacies. Each victim, a knot in a vast, intricate web of secrets, and the killer, a meticulous weaver, unraveling the threads, leaving only the faintest trace of their destruction. The shred bins, the locked safes, they aren't just tools. They are the killer's signature, the silent witnesses to a meticulous purge. The ozone tang, the faint mist, it was the ghost of documents being devoured. The true motive slams into you with the force of a physical blow. This isn't about rage or revenge, not in the conventional sense. This is about information, about control, about making sure certain truths never see the light of day. The victims weren't random. They were custodians. They held pieces of a puzzle, and the killer is systematically dismantling it, piece by agonizing piece, destroying the evidence of their connection, leaving behind only the near-invisible dust of their obliteration. You haven't been hunting a killer. You've been chasing an archivist of oblivion. Davies is a convenient scapegoat, a distraction. The tension coils in your gut, a new, sharper kind of fear. You understand now. The hunt has just truly begun. The official report had dismissed them as incidental, a careless sweep of a broom at a phantom construction site. But you knew better, Seth. The words, still echoing from the previous night's frantic reread, were a deliberate lie. A carefully constructed facade. Incidental. There was nothing incidental about the fragments, not their singular composition, nor their bizarre ubiquity across two disparate crime scenes. Your mind, a relentless current, pulled at the loose threads. Construction site. The first victim lived miles from any active development. The second, sealed in an antiseptic apartment, yielded the same peculiar dust. You spread the magnified images across the scarred tabletop, the grainy texture of the fragments stark against the stark white page. Not concrete dust, not drywall particulate. These were fibrous, almost crystalline, yet with an unnatural sheen. They were paper, or what remained of it. A particular type of paper, you realized, one designed for durability, for security. Think of the documents that demand such resilience, such elaborate destruction. Legal filings, financial records, contracts that demand absolute discretion. A cold certainty settled in your gut. The construction site wasn't a source, it was a subject. The fragments were from documents about a construction project, a project significant enough to warrant high security paper, and secretive enough to be shredded into near nothingness. Your fingers traced the faint, almost imperceptible ink traces on the fragments. A stylized letter, a partial symbol. Permeates. Ashore. The words clicked into place with the chilling precision of a tumbler lock. Your search began with the abandoned development projects near the first victim's former residence, projects that had mysteriously stalled or vanished from public record. It was a digital archaeology, digging through layers of archived news, obscure property filings, and the opaque world of corporate shell entities. The address led you to a glass and steel monolith, its upper floors piercing the bruised twilight sky. This wasn't a place for casual inquiries. It was a fortress of secrets. You watched from the anonymous interior of your car, the city's pulse a distant hum. Figures moved within, sharp suits, briefcases, their faces impassive. The service entrance, often overlooked, offered a sliver of opportunity. A maintenance panel, a forgotten access code gleaned from an old blueprint you'd found online, a legacy of your former life. You slipped inside, a ghost in the gleaming corridors. The air was cool, sterile, scented faintly with ozone and old paper. Each step echoed, a drumbeat against the stillness, a stark reminder of your trespass. Your objective was clear: the shredding room, the archives, anywhere the office's deepest secrets might be discarded or stored. You navigated by instinct, following the hum of unseen machinery, the faint scent of macerated paper. You found the shredding room at last, tucked away on a lower floor. a chamber of mechanical maw and industrial bins. The air here was thicker, heavy with the dust of annihilated documents. A bank of industrial-grade shredders stood silent, their steel teeth waiting. You reached in, your fingers sifting through the pulverized remnants, and there they were, the same unique fibrous texture, the same faint sheen, though fragments. Your breath hitched. This was it. The link. A soft whirring sound from the corridor behind you. The distant click of a door latch. Your head snapped up. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, were approaching. The security guard. You froze, a deer caught in the headlights, but your instincts, dulled by years of disuse, flared to life. The room offered little cover. Only the massive shredders and the towering bins. You pressed yourself against the cold metal of a machine, pulling a canvas sheet meant for protecting equipment over your form. The guard entered, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, painting shifting patterns on the walls. It swept across the bins, over the silent shredders, then lingered for a heart-stopping moment on the very spot where you crouched. Your muscles screamed, urging you to bolt, but you held your breath, a statue carved from fear. You could feel the heat of his presence, hear the soft scrape of his uniform, the slow, rhythmic thump-thump of his patrol. He was close enough for you to smell the stale coffee on his breath. Everything in order. He mumbled into a handheld radio, his voice a low rumble. Just a check. The beam moved on, sweeping toward the far end of the room. He was checking the main power switch, his back briefly turned. This was your chance. But then he paused, his head tilted, as if listening. He turned slowly, his gaze drifting back toward the shredders. You saw his hand, a large meaty fist, reach for the industrial light switch. A desperate surge of adrenaline propelled you. Not out. Daver. The light clicked on, flooding the room with a harsh, unforgiving glare. The guard called out, his voice now sharper, a note of suspicion creeping in. Anyone there? You could hear the creak of his shoes as he moved, systematically checking each corner. Your heart hammered against your ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. You gripped the sample of fragments in your hand, a tangible piece of the truth, your only trophy from this dangerous gamble. Any second now, he would see you. Then, a sudden, piercing ring. His radio. A different voice, urgent, crackled through the speaker. Unit 3, report to main lobby. Disturbance on the street. The guard hesitated, then cursed under his breath. On my way. He didn't look back. You stayed there, unmoving, until the echo of his footsteps completely vanished. Then, slowly, you emerged, your body trembling with the aftermath of the near miss. You had your proof. The office was connected, and the construction site was a lie, but the biggest revelation was still to come. Tucked beneath the industrial shredder, almost as if it had fallen from a higher shelf, was a single, intact document. Not shredded, a faded, legal-sized sheet. It was a project brief for the defunct coastal development, dated decades ago. The tremor in your body slowly receded, a tide pulling back from the shore, leaving behind the stark, cold sand of resolution. The guard's footsteps had vanished completely, swallowed by the thick silence of the building. Polished marble floors gleamed under the emergency lights, reflecting the muted glow of distant street lamps through frosted windows. The air itself felt expensive, laden with secrets and the faint, metallic scent of ozone from unseen servers. You moved, not with haste, but with the predator's careful grace, your senses sharpened by the adrenaline that still hummed beneath your skin. This wasn't just a building. It was a vault, a labyrinth designed to obscure, to protect. Your gaze swept over rows of anonymous doors, each a potential repository of the truth you sought. You knew the drill, the easy targets first, the obvious places where carelessness might leave a thread. The shred bends. You approached the nearest one, a hulking, industrial-grade machine tucked into a recess. Its maw was empty, but the floor around it was not entirely clean. A sliver of paper, no larger than your thumb, lay half-hidden beneath a discarded legal journal. You knelt, your fingers, still faintly unsteady, plucking the fragment. It was a corner piece, bearing only a partial logo, a stylized anchor intertwined with a flowing script you didn't immediately recognize. A dead end, for now, but a detail nonetheless. You moved deeper into a section lined with heavy, reinforced doors, each secured with intricate digital keypads and traditional tumbler locks. These were the safes, the true heart of the office. Your breath hitched. A name, a transaction, a shared client. Your eyes, trained by years of observation, scanned the door frames, the floor tiles, the subtle wear patterns. One safe, nestled between two identical behemoths, caught your attention. Its brass handle had a slightly different patina, a minute scratch near the keyhole that suggested more frequent use, or perhaps a hurried attempt at entry. You didn't have a key, nor did you carry the tools of a professional lockpicker, but you knew how these places worked. Oversight, human error, nothing. This one was purely mechanical. Your fingers traced the edges, feeling for the minuscule give, the almost imperceptible wobble. Then, you noticed it, a barely visible smudged fingerprint on the dust-free surface of the keypad, just above the 7 key. Someone had been here recently, perhaps in a hurry. You were about to try a sequence, a common birthday or an anniversary, when the distinct, metallic clack of a latch echoed from the corridor outside. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, drawing closer. The guard. He was making another round, or perhaps had forgotten something. Your heart did not pound, it clenched, a tightening knot in your chest. There was nowhere to go. You were exposed, trapped in the harsh glow of the emergency lights. But then, an old lesson resurfaced. Stillness. Become part of the furniture. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the low, rhythmic hum of a flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. It swept across the marble, danced over the polished wood of a nearby desk, and then it paused. Directly in front of your hiding place, the beam of light, a searing white spear, hovered inches from your face, illuminating the minute imperfections on the safe's surface. Every muscle in your body screamed for movement, for flight, but you remained frozen, a statue carved from pure tension. Time stretched, thin and brittle. You heard a sigh, a soft shift of weight, and then the beam moved on, the footsteps receding, the clack of the latch once more marking his departure. Then, slowly, you exhaled, the air rasping in your throat. The close call had not deterred you. It had sharpened your focus. The smudged print on the keypad, the frequent use. It was a women's perfume. You re-examined the keypads, your mind cycling through possibilities. Common numerical sequences, birth dates. But what if it wasn't a number? What if it was a name, converted to digits? The stylized anchor logo from the shredded paper came back to you. Corbin, your own name. No, that was too cinematic. Then, a flash. The victim's firm, one of its administrators. A woman, meticulous, almost obsessively organized, always with a faint, distinct perfume. He had been cleared, of course. A minor player, dismissed as having no motive, no connection beyond her employment. But her name had a numerical equivalent. You tried it. 4 digits. A gavel. Your finger hovered, then pressed the sequence. A soft, almost imperceptible click echoed from within the safe. The green light on the keypad flashed. Inside, it was not filled with stacks of cash or gleaming jewels. Instead, a single, leather-bound ledger rested on a velvet lining. Its pages were filled with elegant, precise handwriting. Dates, names, amounts, and then, the true horror began to unfold. The names, they were all there. The recent victims, not as clients, but as assets, as liabilities. Each name followed by a meticulous record of their financial holdings, their vulnerabilities, their connections. And beside each entry, a series of coded notes, abbreviations for acquisition, elimination, disbursement, and the motive, stark and undeniable, written in the margins of the ledger. A decades-long scheme of corporate espionage and asset stripping, carefully orchestrated, slowly draining fortunes, leaving behind only husks. The victims were not random. They were simply the latest obstacles, the ones who had come too close to uncovering the truth. Not a signature, but an embossed initial, a stylized M, and beneath it, a tiny, almost invisible etching, the same stylized anchor with flowing script you'd seen on the shredded paper. The firm's logo, yes, but beneath it, almost like a personal mark, a small, elegant M. The administrator, the quiet, unassuming woman who had managed the victim's firm so many years ago, the one who had always worn that distinct, citrusy perfume. Her full name, Meredith. She hadn't been an innocent bystander, he had been the architect, the phantom killer he had never left. He had simply changed her canvas, her methods evolving, her victims always connected by the insidious tendrils of her grand, decade-spanning theft. The pieces clicked into place with an awful, sickening finality. The meticulous planning, the elusive nature, the way the crimes mirrored each other across the years. It was her, always her. You carefully closed the ledger, the weight of the truth pressing down on you like a tombstone. You returned it to the safe, swinging the heavy door shut, twisting the handle until it clicked into place. The green light on the keypad faded, leaving the safe a silent, impenetrable monolith once more. You knew the name. You knew the motive. You turned, a new purpose hardening your jaw, and slipped back into the silent corridors, the hunt now irrevocably, terrifyingly personal. The city's pulse receded behind you, a distant, muted thrum as your vehicle cut through the pre-dawn quiet. The destination loomed, a concrete monolith indistinguishable from a dozen others in this district of financial anonymity, yet bearing the weight of decades of buried avarice. A breath hitched in your throat, a phantom chill tracing the path of old wounds. The streetlights cast long, skeletal shadows, painting the building's facade in hues of bruised twilight. The lock on the service entrance was an antique, a stubborn sentinel, but years of practiced force had sharpened your technique. Dust motes danced in the light, ancient particles suspended in an atmosphere thick with secrets. The scent of old paper, ozone, and something else, something metallic and faintly acrid, stung your nostrils. It was a scent you knew, a premonition. Through a warren of empty cubicles, past silent workstations, you moved, each step a deliberate calculation. The fluorescent hum of a distant server room was the only sound, a mechanical heartbeat in the belly of the beast. Your gaze swept over the pristine, yet unsettlingly vacant desks. No one here, not yet, but the air thrummed with a low predatory anticipation, an echo of the insidious corporate scheme that had devoured lives for decades. Your grip tightened on the crowbar. He was here, the architect of this vast, destructive enterprise, the orchestrator of lives unraveled and fortunes pilfered. He had returned to his shrine to complete his final, devastating sacrament. You rounded a corner, the beam of your light sweeping across a wide, open area. There, beneath the stark, unwavering glare of an emergency light, stood the figure. Not hidden, not lurking, but performing. His back was to you, hunched over a large, industrial-grade shred bin, its maw already chewing through thick stacks of documents. The air around him shimmered with the heat of its motor, the metallic tang of shredded paper filling the space. You always were a ghost, weren't you? You said, your voice cutting through the mechanical gnashing, flat and resonant in the cavernous space. The figure paused, a ledger in his gloved hands, poised to feed it to the steel teeth. Slowly, deliberately, he turned. He had been there from the very beginning, a phantom in plain sight. Seth Corbin, he said, his voice a dry rasp, devoid of surprise. You always had a knack for inconvenient reappearances. He held up the ledger, its letter cover worn smooth. This, you see, is the final accounting. The last thread connecting all the disparate pieces. Once it's gone, the edifice is complete. Untraceable. Invincible. Your eyes narrowed, taking in the scene. Not just the ledger. On a nearby table, a small, black device blinked with an ominous red light. A tire. You recognized the model. A timed incendiary. A final, definitive erasure. It wasn't just about money, was it? You pressed, moving slowly, deliberately, creating distance from the shredder, closing the gap to the incendiary device. It was about control. A testament to foresight. A world where fortunes are truly fluid, unbound by sentiment or weak governance. And you, Seth, were always the sentimental one. The loose end. The grinding intensified, a visceral tearing sound that echoed the years of lives torn apart. The silver blade glinted under the emergency light. The timer on the incendiary device ticked down, a silent countdown to oblivion. The truth always finds a way, even from the deepest vault. You countered, dropping the crowbar, your hands free, your focus absolute. This was not just about catching a killer. It was about stopping an inferno, both literal and metaphorical, that threatened to consume everything. The air crackled, taut with the promise of violence as the solicitor lunged, the silver blade arcing toward your throat. The climax had arrived, sharp and unforgiving, in the heart of the meticulously crafted lie. The letter opener, cold and sharp, found its mark. Not deep, not fatal, but a searing, unexpected pain in the arm that made the man gasp, his grip on the incendiary device faltering. The silver blade, a relic of forgotten correspondence, now a weapon in your desperate hand. The man stumbled, his head striking the edge of a heavy filing cabinet with a sickening thud. The device clattered, skittering across the polished floor, the digital timer a stark red countdown against the muted gray. A sudden, jarring silence descended, broken only by the persistent, soft tick of the timer and your own ragged breath. You scrambled, adrenaline a bitter taste on your tongue, toward the device. Your fingers, trembling, fumbled with the wires, remembering the schematics, the faint, almost forgotten instruction you'd gleaned from a long-lost file. Akwe, as up. The red numbers froze, then winked out. The air, thick with the scent of ozone and dust, seemed to lighten, even in the dimness. You turned, your gaze drawn to the man on the floor. He lay still, a dark stain blossoming on the carpet beneath his head. The antique letter opener, still clutched in your hand, felt impossibly heavy. A profound weariness settled into your bones, deeper than any physical exhaustion. The ghost that had haunted your waking hours and fractured your sleep finally lay vanquished, but the victory tasted like ash. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, closer, tearing through the fragile peace of the aftermath. Soon, the office would be swarming. You moved to a window, peering out. Blue and red strobes painted the street below, reflecting off the slick asphalt. Figures emerged from vehicles, uniformed and purposeful, their shouts echoing the urgency of their arrival. A flurry of movement, the beam of a tactical flashlight sweeping the room. Clear! A voice barked. Then, Seth Corbin, you all right? It was the lead investigator, his face a mask of grim determination that softened slightly as his eyes found you. Behind him, a team of officers fanned out, securing the perimeter, their movements precise precise, practiced. One of them knelt beside the fallen man, checking for a pulse, then shaking his head slowly. The confirmation was unnecessary. You had seen the stillness. A paramedic, swift and silent, moved to your side, her touch light as she examined the scrapes and bruises blooming on your face and hands. You waved her off, your attention drawn to a specific corner of the office. The man's fall had dislodged a loose panel behind a large, ornate bookcase. Curiosity, the old, relentless impulse, stirred within you despite the exhaustion. "Hold on," you rasped, pushing past the medical responder. You knelt, prying at the panel. It gave way with a soft groan, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled amongst stacks of neatly bound ledgers and sealed envelopes, was a small, leather-bound journal. Its cover was worn smooth, its pages filled with meticulous, elegant script. You opened the journal to a random page. Dates, locations, names not just of the victims you knew, but others, meticulously documented, spanning decades further back than you had ever suspected. The killer's perverse sense of justice, his twisted logic, spilled from the pages, confirming every suspicion, every terrible intuition you'd ever harbored. This wasn't a sudden descent into madness. It was a carefully cultivated legacy of destruction. This, you said, your voice hoarse, is everything. Every ghost, every unanswered question, every reason. The investigator took the journal, his brow furrowing as he scanned the precise handwriting. This wasn't just a confession. It was a manifesto, a roadmap to a lifetime of calculated cruelty. Justice, then, was not just served, but finally, definitively, understood. Later, as the forensics team meticulously documented every detail, you sat on an overturned chair, your gaze drifting over the chaotic scene. The air still hummed with the echoes of violence, but beneath it, a different current flowed, one of resolution. Your body ached with 1,000 minor complaints, each a testament to the struggle. The lead investigator approached you again, a subtle shift in his demeanor. "You did good, Seth." "Oh, good." His words were sparse, but the weight behind them was immense. It was an acknowledgement, a quiet absolution. You simply nodded, unable to articulate the complex tangle of emotions that churn within you. The scars, both visible and invisible, would remain. The memory of the victims, the cost of the chase, would never truly fade. But the relentless pursuit, the desperate need for answers, had finally reached its end. You looked out the window again, at the first pale hint of dawn breaking over the city. The world, it seemed, was still turning, and for the first time in a very long time, you felt a fragile, tentative breath of release. The past, at last, had been laid to rest. The future, unwritten and uncertain, beckoned. The air, typically sterile and hushed, hums with a quiet, charged energy. Before you, a sheaf of documents, crisp and official, details the unraveling of a phantom. The precise handwriting from the journal, a chilling testament to meticulous depravity, now stands transcribed, its contents a cold, irrefutable confession. You trace the edge of a page, your finger brushing over the printed words that once lived only in the killer's mind. Each entry, a calculated step in a decades-long dance of death, lays bare the horrifying scope of their cruelty. The full truth, finally unearthed, feels less like a triumph and more like the heavy settling of dust after a prolonged storm. The silence in the room is not empty. It is pregnant with the weight of lives lost and a justice long delayed. A senior prosecutor, his face etched with a weary respect, pushes a document across the table. "Seth Corbin," he begins, his voice low. "Your persistence had brought this to light. The connection, the pattern, the why no one else saw it." He doesn't offer an apology for the years of dismissal, for the career you lost, but the acknowledgement hangs in the air, a fragile olive branch. You perceive the subtle shift in their gazes, the grudging recognition in the eyes of the other investigators present. The tarnish on your name begins to recede, not vanishing completely, but dulling, allowing the faint gleam of your true purpose to show through. Now, the shred bins in the corner, usually hungry for corporate secrets, seem to mock the years of evidence you gathered that almost met the same fate. But the truth, relentless and unforgiving, found its way out, guided by your unwavering hand. The senior prosecutor clears his throat, breaking the quiet spell. "That will be a review of your case, of the circumstances surrounding your departure. It is not a promise of reinstatement, not yet, but it is a crack in the formidable wall that had imprisoned your professional life. A path, however narrow, begins to clear. You feel a strange sense of detachment, as if watching a scene unfold from a great distance. The vindication is a cool balm, but it cannot erase the scars, the indelible mark of the hunt. Later, as the offshore law office with shred bins and locked safes empties, you find yourself alone with a colleague, a younger investigator who had quietly supported your relentless pursuit. You gaze out the window at the distant glint of the ocean. The vastness of it mirrors the expanse of your own uncertainty. The killer's manifesto, now secured in one of the locked safes, represented not just the end of their reign, but the end of a chapter for you. You are no longer the same man who walked away from the force in disgrace. You are sharper, more jaded, perhaps, but also undeniably clearer. The peace you seek is not the absence of conflict, but the quiet understanding that some battles leave you forever changed. The future is an unwritten page, but the pen is firmly in your hand. The Offshore Law Office, a bastion of secrets, has witnessed not just the sealing of a monstrous truth, but the quiet, determined forging of a new purpose. You step out into the emerging light, a man reborn from the ashes of his past, forever marked, forever vigilant.